Hi everyone, and welcome to our first virtual book club. And our book today is Sensitive is the New Storng by Anita Moorjani. So, Sensitive is the New Storng, the power of empaths in an increasingly harsh world. Tala, what's an empath?
Well, it's interesting that you use that word because that word has just become famous as in trendy, if I may say so. It actually begins, it all can be traced back to the idea of being empathetic, having empathy. يمكن من النقطة اللي حكيتيها about her experience إنه part of her experience was seeing her dad telling her it's not your time, you need to go and teach and help other people deal with whatever they're going through. It's part of being sensitive. مش part of the book بيحكوا إنه sensitive people are more inclined to become healers or helpers or that's what their calling should be. But going to this idea of empathy, it's an interesting term. Well, I think what triggered my constant research more about empathy is because I've always been very interested in the neurobiology foundation of what empathy is.
Oh, wow.
So basically empathy is me being in your shoes, right? Like being in tune with how you're feeling your own experience. So putting myself in your shoes, kind of feeling what you're feeling. So this term of I feel your pain has actually had neurobiological foundation to it. So it's a lot more than just أنا بحكي لك I feel your pain. There's actually much more depth into this, right? So yeah, that's empathy.
So who is an empath here? I am not an empath. Hala? You are?
I am, definitely.
Really?
Yeah. Like, after reading the book, I discovered some of the major weaknesses in my character are actually part of being an empathetic. For example, I was always made fun of by friends and family for never accepting compliments graciously, never wanting gifts, never wanting attention. On my birthday, it would be horrific if I get too much attention.
I celebrate 5 days in a row because
and I hate to celebrate. Of course, it's very difficult for me to say no. And I'm always drained after being in a crowded place, not malls and such. It has to be something with people that I know and associate with. It has to be people that I'm invested in, not just like random people. And I actually really sometimes I feel I would make fun of myself and I'll snap out of it. But sometimes I would feel certain feelings that are not mine and I would struggle why am I feeling like that? إيش في? What's wrong? Sometimes after certain gatherings I would come back so drained and shaky that I have to pray and meditate and sit by myself until I calm down for no reason, for no real reason. So by then after reading this book, everything was just put into, yeah.
Wow. Yasmin.
I'm curious, is everybody an empath? Are you born an empath مثلا?
I just want to go back to this idea of is it learned or is it something you grow into? For the longest time, empathy in research has been argued whether it is actually genetically based or is it something that you can teach.
Okay.
And the science طبعا is out on this in saying that it's not this or that, it's actually a combination of both.
Okay.
So it becomes like you have the hardwire, but you need the software to bring it up to life. So biologically, we all have that predisposition to be an empath. More, some people more than others, but it's really how your life goes in terms of who you interact with, what kind of experiences you have, that kind of shines through. So yeah, it's really a combination of both.
Are you an empath?
I think so, up to a certain point, yeah. But أنا كمان, I also question the fact that how can I put myself, when I put myself in someone else's shoes and I really feel that, but it's all coming through my vision as well, my experiences. I can't totally understand مثلا Hala going through her thing. So how much does that affect my degree of empathy? You know what I mean? My conditioning.
Fair enough, but so empathy is just actually taking on what she's feeling.
I take it on.
You take it on, you carry it with you, right?
Okay.
Empathy, and I feel empathetic towards you, But being an empath, from what they're trying to boil down, is actually taking it a step further.
Yeah.
So it's like you take it away with you. So having
Okay.
dinner with a group of friends and one of them is not feeling well, you pick up on the signs, right?
Okay.
That's empathy, because I'm in tune with you, I'm connected to you. But if I leave this dinner and I'm still thinking of you and I'm bothered and I feel down and I'm irritated and I can't go about my normal day, then that's taking it a step further.
And that's where probably this book comes in to help. And for me, it helped teach me how to manage my empathy. Becoming aware of it was like half the solution, but then there are steps to take. But on another note, I once read, I don't know if that's true or not, that some empaths, they become empaths.
Help
because,
yourselves, guys.
Thank you. Because they've been through certain experiences growing up. Probably they had like some difficult parents, some issues like that they had to become very attuned to the feelings of those around them and to the moods of those around them. Just so, for example, if someone had an abusive parent, for example, they would have to be very attuned so that to avoid being in the
Environment.
Stepping on eggshells.
Yeah.
Stepping on eggshells.
Exactly. So one paper I read, or one article I read, was going on and on about that. So I don't know if I agree, but that's probably another point of if they are born like that or do they really become like that.
Tala, before we go any further, can you please tell everyone what you do? I don't want to make things up and say that you're a psychotherapist, blah, blah, blah. I want you to tell us, what is it that you do? Because it's really impressive.
Thank you. What I do? Well, I have an MA in psychotherapy and counseling.
That's
MA.
master's degree.
A Master's of Arts in Psychotherapy and Counseling.
That's a big deal.
I moved on to do private work. I worked with prominent psychiatrists who've shaped a lot of my knowledge and understanding in the field. I worked in a clinic for about 14 years. And then, for personal reasons, I decided to go into teaching. I think I wanted to slow down because of, bringing a child into this world. I thought, you know what, take it easy. It's all about her now. But I did go into teaching my subject, which was an added value to me, because I went back to basics myself. فهلا كتير الفيلد اللي عم بتعلم وعم بتعلمه from the research base, from the basics back to basics, and I'm going so deep into it that I'm appreciating it more and more and more. So I've been a teacher, and I am still a teacher of psychology in the IB diploma program at ABS. I'm also a co-partner بالmental health hub مع الدكتور فلاح التميمي. I'm the head of the psychological department.
Wow.
And I'm responsible for channeling my passion of prevention of mental health, raising awareness about mental health.
I'm actually really interested in all of your opinions in regards to children. We thankfully all have children. And like Anita was saying, your childhood shapes you. And it shapes you for like decades. And so the fact that we have children, you see that you have your own child, you see children at school every day within your realm. You guys are very hands-on parents. I'm not. I like my girls to, I'm sure they have their own opinions on it, but so I'm just curious, after having read the book, Sensitive is the New Strong, and how she said that the way we are brought up is like a marinade, like it's like the cooking reference, you know. What is your take home in regards to childhood, what you see at home? Do you have anything to share?
Yeah. And I think the first thing I would love to share, which is not in our control, is that I wish I could have, the biological clock could give me a bit more time to have children at a later age, because I think I would be more, even though I had them my early 30s, not in my 20s, but I think I needed more time to mature myself as a person before I had my children.
That is so right, yeah.
Yes, I think having a child later would have just because of, you know, you're discovering yourself, you're discovering your weaknesses, your strengths. I think I would have loved that, maybe to have them at 40.
And actually, I've been told by my eldest daughter. طبعاً هلا جود would hate me if she sees this. Sorry, mama. Hi Jude. بس يعني
Hi Jude.
Really, I had Jude at 25 and I had Adnan at like 34. So there's there's so much to learn in that span of 9 years and so much experience to go through. And I had Nadine in between, not to forget Nadine. But no, I was definitely much calmer and I was definitely mature أكتر. Things were different with Adnan. So Jude would come and tell me, had we done that when we were kids, you would have done 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever.
But that's normal.
That's normal, yeah. But I would agree with Yasmin because it takes a certain degree of maturity and groundedness is a بدي أحكي for you to.
I think you're a different person, and I think I needed to learn more about myself before I took the step of consciously having children, because also both my I didn't consciously say, okay, right now I want to become a parent.
Okay.
I mean, did I even question that? Did I say, okay, do I want to become a mother? It's just something you do. That's it. This is the way, you go to school, you did it. Yeah,
but see, it's the reality of why إحنا كparents كمان, we're very different with each child.
Yes.
And that's why each child becomes a different combination of you, your parenting style is very different. عشان هيك ما بلاقي 3 إخوة زي بعض.
Exactly. And being an empath, this really plays into your role as a parent. And for me, I've had, my kids are like all these different characters. So instead of wanting to subdue certain characteristics in their personality, had I had them at a later point, maybe I would have understood my ايش الكلمة؟ my built مثلا أو my تركيبتي, my psyche,
hardwire.
Yeah, my hardwire, and I would have been able to accept theirs and work with it instead of trying to shape them like what I know to be right. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, taking what I'm taking from this, from reading the book, and we're looking at the parenting side of it, right? And I'm thinking, really, parents who are identified as empath. بس لاحظوا أنا عم بستعمل كلمة كتير lightly لأنه أنا ما بحب أستعمل labels.
Okay.
I think that's very
I think
important.
these labels do have a sense of security where people feel like, finally I know what I am or what I fall under, because we as humans like these labels and categories. They kind of give us like a containment, right? But there's also a danger in that, because and as a person I identify with a lot of things that she says, but am I an empath?
Are you an empath?
It depends on the time, situations, context that I'm in, where I'm at, who I'm with. Do I connect with you? Do I not connect with you? I've learned with time from my own work and practice is that I'm very empathetic in a setting where I'm listening to someone telling me an issue, but the minute I leave my session, I've learned to kind of say, okay, now it's my life again. So that boundaries are extremely important,
Yes.
right? So I'm very weary of the terms. So mind me if I say that. But as a parent, when I think about it, yes, if I'm with my child, I'm a complete empath. يعني خديني بالطول وبالعرض. يعني أنا compare me to my husband مثلا. Okay, my husband is very pragmatic. He likes things done. I'm always thinking, but how is she feeling in the situation? What is she? You're not in tune with how it's making her feel. Sometimes it's a two-way sword, right? لأنه أنا بالنسبة إلي مرات إنه خلاص, just move on. أنا بدقر لا على اللي why and how, and mom, let's talk about this and how are you feeling about this. When times you feel like, boundaries are so important, and she says that, and I appreciate that, because building boundaries, raising awareness is key to kind of building and creating yourself, an identity separate from the other. We're not made to be in symbiotic relationship, because every child, when they're born, they're in symbiotic relationship with the parent and the caregiver, but at a certain time in life, they need to separate so life can move on.
I think the one thing that I think the kids, and I learned this over time as well, is really validating their emotions. No matter what it is, it's okay. I validate whatever, even sometimes if I think, oh God, he's being irrational or I don't think it makes sense, it's their emotion, whatever it is. And so it's they like to be heard and seen. So once you validate that, then you take it a step. So I think you have to let them have their journey, be their net, I guess, without the judgment, and validating what they're feeling throughout whatever process it is they're going through.
Yeah.
But that's a high skill to learn.
Yeah.
Once
It's
you
so
learn
hard.
to step back and say, that's where I stop. This is not me.
Yeah.
This is
Listen,
them, right?
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work.
doesn't,
Sometimes
absolutely.
I can do it and I can say, oh, why did I react that way? But the nice thing is that even the days that you can't really do it, I can go back and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, let's say, snap at you or get back. I understand, but I was having a tough day.
I wanted to touch base on something that Anita continuously says, consistently says in the book, which is about, she gave the example of the stone that you chip at to release the angel. And she keeps saying that all very well intentioned, but there are lots of different schools of healing, different schools of therapy, where they, in order to protect yourself, you build walls and you create boundaries in order to protect yourself. And what she's saying is, if you are sensitive and you have, a connection to your mystic self, the last thing you should be doing is concealing this with more layers of bubble wrap. To me, when she said it, I was thinking, okay, bubble wrap. We're all like trying to, protect ourselves from the environment, from how people are reacting, especially that it's not easy communicating with so many different people if you are so sensitive to people's emotions. So I'm curious to know, how did that resonate with you when she said, open yourself up? It's like, oh my God, that's the last thing I'm going to do. That's how I felt.
Is it a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this question has different parts. I want to relate to certain parts in the book. هلا بالنسبة للlayers, I discovered, yes, I do have some layers for me to navigate my life, not just on a spiritual level, on a social level, on everything. Sometimes I'm just detached from certain people. Maybe deep down I'd like to be more invested in them, but then I create this detachment thingy so that if anything happens, I won't be hurt or they won't affect me as deeply as they might. So that's one of my layers. One of my other layers is the escapism. She mentioned escapism, and probably my escapist routes or whatever are probably maybe food and books.
حلو.
I love reading. Sometimes I think it's a form of escape for me. Okay, so that's about the layers. But I don't know how I'll integrate that into the next part of the question, is that sometimes when sensitive people want to seek spiritual paths, Anita was against the idea of following a certain guru or a certain teacher, because most of these gurus and teachers, they would try to make you fall for them, have faith in them. They're not strengthening your faith in yourself, in your own judgment, in your higher powers, let's say. So for her, and they want you to suppress your ego. So for her, a two-part, I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, totally.
Yeah. She wants, sensitive people, bizzat, they need to have a stronger ego than most people, because usually their ego is suppressed aslan. For me, I used to feel weak when I'm not saying, I used to feel weak when I'm a people pleaser. I didn't realize it was part of me of just keeping the peace, not rocking the boat. Okay, so I found maybe I should strengthen my ego, and if I'm going to a spiritual teacher that's telling me no, ego is bad and everything, now I'm just more aware. Now after reading this book, I'm just more aware when I'm listening to various spiritual teachers. I should pick and choose the things that resonate with me, that empower me, rather than make me more like a doormat to them.
طبعا. Or dependent on them, which is a topic. Which is a topic that, like I said, I'm not an empath. But I do have some sensitivities that allowed me to really enjoy this book. And I really had a good time reading this book, and for some reason my spirit was light. Like I read the book in like 48 hours and
we were كثير من لحد ما قريت لك.
I was like, I loved it. I don't know why my spirit was just so happy and light reading the book until she touched on a topic that is so sensitive to me that I have serious issues with.
And she lost you.
And she lost me. I'm like, okay, هاي وحدة مادية.
So maybe
I don't want her.
that was where you should investigate.
بالضبط.
Why she affected you this
Why
much.
she affected me so badly. Which the reason why I brought this up is because you were saying that at the end of the day, some gurus, it becomes a little bit material. So if you are dependent, if they teach you to be dependent on yourself, you may not end up buying their next book or joining their next podcast, etc., etc. And so in the chapter before last, she talks about how empaths have problems, making money.
Anna, when I first read the book, it reminded me of you, because working with Suhad, of course we had many issues with money and like
a startup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of you in a bit, because you were always struggling to to charge your services properly, and then
I have a problem with that.
So I figured that you have a certain empathetic quality.
Maybe. What do you think? I mean, how do you see it?
I mean, it goes back to what I was just saying, in the sense that yes, we relate to a lot of the things that she says, and I guarantee anybody who reads this book is going to find themselves somehow between these lines. But it's a point where you get someone who's very in tuned into this can read it min jilde la jilde. For me, I can't. I skim through it because I feel like it's repetitive at some point where she starts preaching, and I'm thinking, here we go again with all this, self-help kind of thing.
Where did you find the preaching?
I don't know, in the repetition, she keeps going back to things. It's like putting these salt and pepper on things for me. بالعربي يعني بهرها. إنه من الآخر يعني give me what you're trying to tell me.
It's because you're science-based.
Yeah, and because I'm science-based, I like to go back to the evidence and to what she's talking about. Whether you understand that most people who are sensitive, who are identified as empathetic, or they take it a step further to become empath, are actually mostly people who end up suffering from social anxiety.
Wow.
عيدي.
People who are very in tune, like empathetic, but take it a bit step further to becoming an empath, actually might have issues with social anxiety.
So I should investigate whether I have social anxiety issues.
And you're already turning pink. I swear.
No, but it's actually all, like they're all, you can literally trace it back. They're all connected. It's not like you're saying something new to yourself. So بعد الهذا we'll take an appointment. No, but yeah, I mean, yes, because there's a cycle, right? I'm very sensitive. I try to avoid certain specific situations. I try to engage with people because I want to show you the other side of me, that I'm not so sensitive. So what happens is I become personally aroused or stimulated or however you want to call that. And then I become labeled as either timid or socially anxious, or I'm antisocial.
Okay. Wow. I think for me it triggers the other thing. If I'm in an awkward situation or I'm nervous, I don't stop talking.
Oh,
you blabber.
I blabber.
I do that also.
I blabber.
Wow.
I do that.
If I'm comfortable and I'm good, I'm more quiet. And I will sit comfortably, quietly in myself. But if I'm in a situation where I'm not feeling comfortable, I'll talk.
بتبطلي تسكتي يعني.
ما بسكت.
I think I do that.
And I become a stand-up comedian.
Oh my gosh. شو حلو.
I have that, but yeah. I've learned to embrace it.
So you either don't stop talking or you go hide.
هذا اللي أنا بدي أحكي لك إياه next. What really resonated with me and what I found so interesting in the book, although I am a caregiver personality, not an empath, was the Wu Wei, which is action through inaction. هلا أنا برج الثور. So as you can imagine, when I come to say things or when I have an opinion, it is a very, very forceful opinion. And I grew up, basically like a bull in a china shop. You know, I'd be quiet, and then bah! You know, be quiet, and then bah! You know, and it doesn't work because you end up being the bad person. You could be telling the truth and you could have a very solid point, but if you're not saying it with a smile on your face, it doesn't work. And so I really enjoyed that part of the book because it just reinforced something that I had a personal experience with.
I think, Hala, you asked a very important question. I think it's one of those discussions we were having before about children. And you were asking me if that's, I think I saw my name on one of your papers in regards to teaching kids about bullying and how they should stand up for themselves and that kind of interrelated dynamic. I think, personally, I think it falls back to emotional literacy. It's not as easy as she makes it sound in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
It's too flowery.
Perhaps
for
we
me.
should mention the example she gave for those who haven't read the book.
احكي.
You
You mean the cookies? The cookies one?
Yeah.
I didn't like that example, actually. I didn't think it was a good example of Wu Wei, but what she was saying was, as a child, her mother used to give her 5 cookies, and they were the best cookies in the world, and she'd get to school, and there were a bunch of bullies that would steal her bag of cookies every single day. And so what her mom said was, instead of telling her to,
stand up to
stand
them,
up, tell the principal, blah, blah, blah. She told her, okay, here's a second bag. Just give them another bag of cookies and move on, you know? Yeah. And so the situation was diffused. I didn't like that example at all. And I didn't feel that it was a good example of Wu Wei.
Also, I think an important part of going back to the whole bullying and empathy is with all the cyberbullying.
Ooh.
When I send a message out there to a person, I don't see their reaction. I, as the deliverer of, let's say, a bullying message or a hateful, if I see, let's say, I do it to you on the playground, you cry, you run away, something happens. So that could create an emotion in myself, like, oh my goodness, what I did created something negative, maybe it makes me feel bad, some kind of reaction. But when I do it through social media platform or WhatsApp or
the invisibility of it
takes away all the
I don't see how I've hurt you. I don't see that. So does that decrease our empathy? Like, how does that, how is that going to affect all of the kids?
This is actually scaring me.
Yeah,
we're bringing up a generation of people who are probably
less empathetic.
Less empathetic. I mean, it takes that step back. How do you,
You've raised a very important question, because that's what parents should be highlighting. How can I teach my son to stay in tune with his empathy? Because yes, digital life, if I may say so, has actually drained our ability to be empathetic. يعني زي ما بيحكوا, a lot of the research on empathy, believe it or not, are done on medical students. Because all this knowledge that they learn and the training actually deprive them of their human connection and ability to be trained. So a lot of them, they say that these medical students have to re-enter courses on empathy.
Wow.
It's fascinating.
In other words,
بتمسحوا or God complex?
No, I think because they deal with so much. يعني لازم بالآخر شوي تمسحوا عشان
هي الاكستريم اللي احنا بنحكي عنها. هي عم تحكي انه انت you are an empath, you identify, you relate to all these symptoms. هي مش الفكرة انك تصير opposite completely. هي الفكرة انك انت to find yourself through awareness, to find building your balance, to find the balance. هلا في ناس كتير بفكروا انه بس انا اخذ هدول tips انا رح اكون perfect. هي الفكرة زي ما كنا عم نحكي انا وياك ياس, is to maneuver the situations. في situations where it's going to work. في situation where it's going to be stronger than we can handle, so we need to step back and kind of learn ليش هاي زبطت اليوم, ليش هاي ما زبطت اليوم, until we find the balance, or let's say the rhythm.
It goes back to self-awareness. Self-awareness. I know myself, and maybe that's one thing we need to teach the kids from when they're very young. Self-awareness. How do they relate to themselves? How do so that later on in life they can manage their challenges, because okay, I know these are my weaknesses, these are my strong points, this is how so maybe if we can introduce that at young ages,
I
it will
like the
help
part,
them.
sorry, because this goes along with what you're saying. At the end of the book, she was talking about the 80-20 rule. No, our physical bodies are the 20%, whereas deep down we're 80%. So if we're able to be aware of that and teach that to our kids or whoever, يعني هنا we're like making big strides towards, I don't know.
Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left.
5
That's
minutes?
long.
No. Okay, we'll cut that one out. Okay. Okay, so to kind of like round things up, okay, what resonated most with each of you in the book? And what would you like to share with our audience? Yassi.
Let's go. I think I liked the whole. I think what I said earlier. It made me realize that self-awareness is very important. I need to be more self-aware of myself in situations. I realized, yes, I am extremely sensitive in certain situations, maybe not in other situations. Self-awareness, setting boundaries, and just learning more about myself to be able to navigate in the world, basically.
Do you think the boundaries are like the bubble wrap?
Yeah, for sure.
No,
I think
I disagree.
that's why I use the word tools as opposed to, because if you open yourself up to the world, you need tools to be able to manage.
Of what comes.
Yeah,
right?
you need to be able to manage it. So in your opinion, these are called boundaries, these tools. One of the
Yes.
tools is boundaries.
Yes.
Okay.
بس boundaries كمان إلها tools. يعني how to build boundaries is a completely different topic that I think should always be addressed in our culture in particular.
I think
Oh.
so too.
يعني أنا I think إذا أنا بدي ألخص what I got from the book really is that people have to understand that being empathetic comes in 3 ways. You are cognitively, you are هلا المتعارف عليه what people know about empathy is the effective empathy. I feel your pain. I feel what you're going through. But there's also cognitive empathy where people actually can think like you do, can pick up on what you're thinking. And there is a somatic one where I feel your pain in literally, like physically. I feel like when you say بطني عم بوجعني and then I start feeling that. هلا the somatic empathy actually is hardwired in the brain, which I'm always fascinated by something we call mirror neurons. There are actually parts in our brains that are hardwired so that if I reach this and I pick it up, there's something in Yassi's brain that's actually firing, feeling that I'm actually picking this up. So she feels like she's picking it up herself.
The
Can
sensation.
أنا for me هذا it was long before I discovered that I have بلاش نحكي labels, you hate them, بس إنه أنا for me whenever if I see someone stumble and fall, I would definitely feel it in my knees or my
That's
legs
because
or
of
whatever.
your mirror neurons.
Yeah, I never knew. I thought everyone was built like that. And more so, if it were my kid who's falling or burning her little finger or something, I would just feel the physical pain so bad. It's just, يعني, it's weird. فأنا, and it took me a while to realize that no, not everyone is like that. So it's fine. يعني, I tried, becoming aware of it made me try to manage it or accept it.
One of the things about raising awareness, Kaman, is to understand the universality behind it. It's an universal, you're not alone in this. And I think that also helps a lot of people in the sense that I do relate to certain things about it. And, yes, I agree with you. In certain situations, I feel exactly the same. So it's not awkward and it's not مش عيب مش غلط. We all have these moments where we can relate to each other. And the more we talk about it, the more we know how to deal with it, right? Because we become aware of what's going on. So my take from this book is that it really highlights an important topic. I think people should go research more about empathy and where they're standing. But quickly about measuring empathy because it's highlighted. The tools the self-help books use are simplified versions of a more scientific, let's say, tool to measure things. So her tool that she was using was based on one that's out of 100 questions where people try to see where they are in terms of their empathy. So they are evidence-based and they are tested for reliability and validity. So I wouldn't know to what extent her simplified version is measuring empathy or not. So I'd just be very weary about that, because they're pretty much like all the things that you see on Tumblr, Tinder, you know, find yourself, figure yourself out. And no, you have to really don't take it as it is. There's so much more to that than that. But yeah, empathy is a fantastic thing to teach our kids, and for us to learn more about ourselves, build more boundaries so that we can have healthier relationships. Because you wanted to say something about being dependent or in a dependent relationship, and then you lost that thought.
You mean the ping pong? The ping, I play, my brain plays ping pong, so there's like many ideas going around at the same time. What I wanted to say was that there was a very large portion of the book that was about spirituality and the mystic universe, which we didn't talk about at all. Is it because it didn't resonate with us, or because...
I think for me it's very private.
Okay.
For me,
the whole spirituality thing.
It's me, myself, and I.
Halula?
مش عارفة, to be honest. لا, for me, أنا my take or what I took from her spirituality part is that I should really listen to my gut instincts, listen to my higher, what did she call it? My higher brain or something, my higher self, and you have to become more attuned to my higher self, because for the longest time I never trusted these voices, let's say. So Anna, for me, this is where I related to what she was saying.
Anna, هلا, going back to the whole dependency thing, I think what I realized through this book and through other books, it's a recurring topic for me personally, is my dependence on the outside world. And it's a very painful dependence, because, and that's why a lot of people say that they call me moody, because I can come across as elated, depressed, so talkative, don't want to say a word. And what I realized, it's because I'm dependent on the outside world to make me feel happy. Therefore, if I'm not happy, I am disappointed. If my expectations were thwarted, I'm so disappointed. And so when she talks about the higher self and about raising your frequency, I do realize that when I work on my frequency, I am less dependent on the outside world. And it really is something I need to work on. And so at the end of the day, what I wanted to say, it's a good book for everyone. You don't need to be an empath to read the book.
No.
Because you take from it what you need. And me as a caregiver, and maybe I'm a caregiver because I'm trying to control the outside world so that I am as happy as physically possible. And so I enjoyed the book. I really did enjoy the book. And I will work on my higher frequency and be a nicer person.
I'm curious to see why you don't think yourself as an empath. Maybe...
No, I'm not. I'm sensitive, but I'm not an empath. I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive to people's feelings, but I'm not an empath.
You don't
relate. You are actually, and come to think about it, because we work together.
Maybe in different situations.
Yeah, on the spectrum, maybe I'm a 3.5 out of 10.
Wouldn't you, sometimes when we used to work together in the office, wouldn't you pick up on certain vibrations, let's say?
Yes,
and when one of us is feeling down, مثلا, you would feel it. And sometimes if you don't need this lower frequency feeling, you would remove yourself and go to the other office.
Yes.
I've seen you do that.
But again, it goes back to, why should we put her in the label?
Yeah.
She's empathetic, she's sensitive, she's in tuned, but does she have to be?
I think for me, an empath really emotionally are so connected to people around them, and they're unable to protect themselves from the different energies. I do feel maybe the vibrations of others, etc., but I am able to protect myself, and therefore I'm not an empath.
Yeah, but see, she talked a lot about these little tips, which I'm sure most people do now, like walking in nature, meditation, exercise, all these other إيش كان في
the basics.
The basics, journaling, whatever. كل هدول الأشياء to protect your energy from, or to protect yourself from absorbing the negative energies around you, or the, for example, the positive or the negative feelings. I don't know. But it's an interesting book, يعني, and like Suhad said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed big parts of it. And I would think no مش ضروري الواحد يكون sensitive or an empath to read it.
Yes, I
because
agree.
يعني you can read it and you relate to it because you have empathetic kids مثلا, or your husband is like that أو إشي يعني there is something for everyone in it. يعني.
بس حبيتها. You don't have to be an empath to read it, and you don't have to come out an empath.
Yeah.
You don't
صح.
have to, yeah.
هلا أنا عجبني فكرتك إنه no need to label ourselves, بس أنا for me part of the description that I related to, I enjoyed relating to it because يعني it made me realize إنه it's okay, it's not so bad. معناته أنا I'm not the only one who's unable to say
Absolutely,
no,
absolutely.
or I'm not the only one who's a people pleaser, and I can work myself into getting out of this mold.
بس المشكلة بالليبلز إيش هلا؟ إنه الناس بتصير تحملها زي كأنها the solution to everything. إذا أنا ما عرفت أتعامل بموقف because I'm an empath، لأنه أنا تضايقت موقف because I'm an empath، فبتصير more of an excuse. فعشان هيك بقول لك إنه labels يعني هي it's nice because قلت لك at the end the beginning قلت لك it gives you comfort.
صح.
إنه أنا مش لحالي، إنه في ناس تانيين. Actually في there's a whole like an association I think called the empathetic the Empath Association.
يما أحلاه.
The name started coming
مش
out
عارفة
in
إذا ما
December
أحلاه ولا لا يعني.
2013. بس يعني it is a Western concept at the end of the day.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just so that you all know, we did a breathing exercise before we started. That's
We
why
sure
we're so
did.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Sure did. Empathetically
you.
did it.
Empathetically.
Empathetically did the breathing exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.